So, story time. I am 1 and 4. If you know what that means, then you know exactly what I'm going to talk about. But if you don't know what that means, it means I am 1 and 4 women who have experienced something when it comes to childbirth, things like that. And so, my story time, I had gotten pregnant with my daughter at 21 years old, actually on my 21st birthday. Went full term, no issues with pregnancy. It's a really great pregnancy, good delivery, no issues. She came out 8 pounds, 12 and a half ounces, no issues at all. Really with that, just a couple things for another story with my delivery and whatnot, but nothing really major and everything like that. After I had her, which was December of 2017, that whole next year, I dealt with a lot of different women issues. I ended up having bad pap smears. I had to keep going back every 6 months until finally they were like, we need to figure out what's going on. We did a biopsy, and I had to have what they call a LEEP. If you know what a LEEP is, yeah, you know what it is. I'm not going to go too much in detail of that. You can look it up. But I had that. Roll around to about October of 2018. One Sunday, I'm like, I don't know, doing some things. And I took a test, found out that it was positive, which I'll do another story time on that because it's like it's its own thing. Found out it was a positive pregnancy test. I had just started working at a new job. I was still in training. It's actually a job I'm at now. I came back to it, but I was still in training and everything like that, and I worked until 5 p.m. And I went that whole week. We started, we had just found out, barely anybody knew about it. We were just kind of wrapping our heads around it. We already had my daughter who was born, and then, I was pregnant again. And so I went to work all week, woke up Friday morning, and I was bleeding. And so I went to work. Like I said, I was in training. I needed this job really bad. And if you miss a day of training, you have to start completely over and wait for a whole nother training class once that one's finished. And we had just started, so it was going to be over a month before another one had started, and I needed the job. And so I was like, I can't miss. So I was like, well, let's just see, it could be just spotting. I just found out. So I was like, well, maybe, it's just some type of spotting that sometimes you get at the beginning of pregnancies for whenever it, implant, things like that. If you know, you know. And so I was like, I'll just wait. I started to feel pain while I was at work that day. And my sister-in-law was with me, and we said, okay, if I'm still bleeding and hurting when I get off work at 5, we're going straight to the ER. So my husband and them knew about it, and went throughout the day. The day had ended, and I was still bleeding. So we went straight to the ER. I took a positive pregnancy test. I found out about a week ago, not even. And I started to bleed, started to cramp. So, I come to see, what was happening. They ran a lot of different tests, just seeing if maybe I had like a pelvic thing, or if I, all these different things. And they ultimately couldn't figure anything out about it. They're like, we don't really know, whatever. I'm like, okay, am I having a miscarriage? What's happening? I'm sitting there. This is when she said, you're probably less than 10 weeks along. We usually don't do this, but the doctor ordered you to do an internal sonogram because he, has a feeling, he has a hunch that he needs to go ahead and check one more thing before we just send you home. So just bear with me. I'm getting it all set up. We're going to get you over there. And I'm like, okay, I don't know much of anything. And so I was like, okay. So I end up going and getting internal sonogram. If you've ever had an internal sonogram with pain, gosh, oh my God, it was bad. And so did that. They didn't tell me anything. They couldn't tell me anything. The lady who did the sonogram, she just was like, they'll let you know what the results are, blah, blah, blah. Okay. I go back into the room, wait, they finally come back in. Doctor comes in and tells me that I have an ectopic pregnancy. I didn't even know what that was. I was like, And so they explained it to me. Basically, the baby didn't make it to where it needed to be, and it implanted in one of my fallopian tubes. And the bleeding is because of that. In my case, actually, I didn't end up having the baby itself usually will rupture because it doesn't have any space to grow. It didn't happen in that sorts for me. It actually ruptured my tube. The baby was still viable, and the baby was still actively just growing. So at that point in time, they called my OB. They called other OBs in the area. They had on-call doctors. They contacted everybody in that city to see if somebody would come in to do a procedure. Because if they had sent me home, I would have bled to death. And so that was their concern, was something needed to happen and needed to happen immediately, because the baby has already ruptured my right fallopian tube and it's just proceeding, and I'm bleeding at this point, and I'm already in pain. And so I was shocked. Like I said, 22 years old, because I got pregnant at 21, and I have a baby at home and a husband and a bonus daughter. And so I was really freaked out. Finally, none of the doctors in the city that I was in, the town, was willing to come in and do it. My doctor I actually have now, which was not my OB at the time, he actually was one that he only said that he wouldn't do it because he had not had enough experience with it, that he wanted someone more experienced to do it if someone else came. If for some reason no one else would, obviously he would be over there to do it, but he just didn't have enough experience in it that he did not want to be the first person to attempt it. He would have rather them circle the rounds and find somebody. Well, they found somebody in a different town over. It's actually a bigger town, bigger hospital, better at that, who went ahead and agreed to do it. They put me in an ambulance, rushed me to another hospital about an hour away, and I went straight off the ambulance, straight into the room. He gave me a rundown as to what was going to happen. He told me that, once he gets in there, he'll know how much damage it has. Right now, they're hoping to just take the tube, but if they have to take the ovaries, if they have to take the whole thing, if I have to full hysterectomy, then, these are the things that could happen, and I'm going to have to be aware of that. And so I was like, okay, well, let's hope not. He said, but he's going to try to keep everything that he can if it's not damaged. I was like, okay. So, they sent me straight into a bathroom, made me change, take everything off, rings and all, stick it in a bag. While I was in the bathroom, I remember, praying, the hardest that I've ever actually prayed. I was probably the closest in my journey with God that I was able to, actually pray to him, I need to come home. I have a new baby. I have a family to come home to. I need to come home. In hindsight, looking back at it now, I'm like, there was a reason. There was a reason I need to come home. I'm an advocate for my bonus daughter right now. I'm the one, making sure that she's safe. Had I not been here, I don't know what my husband would have been aware of that I found out about. And, just different things like that. And took on my niece and my nephews literally right after that. And had I had delivered, if I had that baby in July, then I would have turned around and had an extra young child while trying to take on the 3. I probably wouldn't have been able to actually take on my niece and nephews when they needed me the most. So in hindsight, I see it as there's a reason for everything. And my purpose had to have been that they needed me, and God needed my baby more. And I went straight into surgery. It's 2 a.m. in the morning, I think, is when I woke up. Procedure went fine, no complications, anything like that. But I have a 50-50 chance to get an ectopic pregnancy again. I only have one right fallopian tube removed. I actually still have my ovary and everything. So I still have my ovaries and my left side. That's how I got pregnant with my son, which was a miracle. They said there was slim chances of getting pregnant again. So I ended up being. So just know, if you've been through the same experience, you're not alone. I'm 1 in 4, and so are you. But that's one of my stories. So.